audible. Please just shoot your hand if I'm not audible.
Yeah,
I
audible.
trust I'm
Yeah.
audible. Okay. All right. So we'll kick off from a discussion that we were having like last week, which I wasn't able to finish because of or last time because of time. So someone had asked, would you consider this project small? So this was in reference to the DroidCon app. The answer was yes, like in my personal opinion. And then how do you gauge a project? Since multiple people were contributing, it felt big, medium sized to me. Also, depending on the answer you choose from above, will you follow the MVC you mentioned or stick to this? So ideally, I consider a project small if if I can fit it mentally into my mind, in the sense of uh, in the sense of you have like say a couple of pages and then all the pages are very very clear. There isn't like very uh, complicated functionality that is in play. So if I can recall from memory where everything is uh, in one go, then it's a pretty small project. So I guess that depends on how various guys do view it. But most times, if an app is like a couple of pages big, say between rather like if the key features say are less than 10, uh, it's a pretty small app because when you now begin to like do very huge apps, at times you find that as an individual you're a contributor, yes, but you're only working on like 2 or 3 pages of the application. Someone were to ask you about another part of the application, you'll need like onboarding time just to be able to dig in there and then be able to really contribute and contribute like meaningful code because at times there is business logic, at times there is so much context you have to understand. E.g., say like someone wrote like 3 lines of code, but those 3 lines of code, there was like context which was factored in to ensure that those 3 lines of code work the way they do. So if you change it without their context, then you might cause damage or you might introduce bugs where they are meant to be introduced. So a small project, if you're able to like have the full context of the code in your mind without like so much struggle, and then I like a really huge project, if if what if 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 different people are responsible for different parts of the application because of the because maybe it's a big feature, maybe like there is so much stuff going on there, e.g. like real-time stuff. Uh, and especially if you have to like do integrations like with the backend as well, because those do take time as well, depending on the team structure. In my like in most of my work, I can do both backend and front end. So if I want to do something myself, I can have it like on the backend and on the front end. But now in a huge team where the backend is huge, and then say you have like many other guys like working the backend, and your feature is not like priority, then it does take a while. And yeah, it's a pretty big gap. Following the MVC pattern, I don't think I spoke of the MVC pattern. Uh, but yeah, in the context of oh wait, that was the DroidCon application. So in the context of the DroidCon application, the pattern that was I think that was used there was again I mentioned that someone had done the initial scaffolding of the entire application. It was a committee member. His name is uh is is Siru. I think all
Yeah.
of us know him. Yes. And so he'd been able to set up, I guess, like a clean code, like kind of approach. So in honor of that work and not to like redo anything, it was easier to just go along with it. And it was pretty good. Again, any code base, in my opinion, as long as you're able to change code predictably, like say, if I want to add a new feature, I touch file 1, file 2, file 3, the feature is added, and it's consistent across all the features across the board, then it's a pretty good structuring and architecture to me, uh, regardless of the state management option in use. So yeah. So now on to today's main agenda. Okay, this main agenda. Entire screen. Do let me know if you can see my screen.
Yeah, can see it.
Okay, just a moment. Okay, I'm looking for this particular link. Why? Okay, just give me. So today's code is available on GitHub. Ugh, man, what is this?
The cards have many tabs.
Yeah, is requesting allow. Okay, so today's code is available on I guess you can share this on like on the WhatsApp group. Who is the DM? Is available here. So in case you want to just have a look as we go along. So basically what you're covering today is security. And security in this context is quite huge, by the way. We have many things to consider in security. There are things like certificate pinning. There are things like disabling. You can disable certain modes in the application and stuff like that. So all those things just to ensure that the device is secured. There's a plugin for that which helps to enforce some of these things, whose name I'm forgetting. I guess I'll recall and I'll share. But today's scope is basically around token security, which I think someone had mentioned like last time we were on session, whereby how do you handle refresh tokens and stuff like that. And it's a pretty good question actually, because like on my end, I do get at times to do interviews or to help people interview candidates for their companies. And so what then happens is that most people say they know like working with Flutter as a mobile development framework. But then, in my opinion, uh, uh, knowing Flutter, is not the same as knowing mobile development, because what many people, I guess, like who are junior or like yeah, like who are junior normally think that mobile dev is that as long as I know how to make widgets and stuff like that, then I know Flutter, then I know mobile development. But that is wrong. And so most times, if say 50 guys applied, most times the fastest way to get that list down to like less than 8 people normally is just to ask somebody, call an API, call a JSON API, uh, and then maybe do some authentication on a JSON API. The moment you do that, you lose a huge bunch of people. So in like 50 people, you'll get about like five or eight who have decent enough content that they can be able to share. Because most times in most tutorials, you normally interact with Firebase, which some of these things never come up. So when setting up the token security, because most APIs, whether they're GraphQL, whether they're any like REST APIs, normally they would have a form of authentication, and most times it takes the form of like tokens. And so because tokens are almost like a username and a password, it's possible for them to be abused. And so various backends normally implement ways to secure their backends and to ensure that the tokens are not abused. And so in today's session, we'll just go over like two ways. There are like three major ones, but number three, I wasn't able to get the sample ready on time. So we'll just deep dive into two of them. So the first one is There are APIs where you can set up a token to expire after some time so that a login can be forced. And so think of it this way. Uh, Normally this one works well where you don't require like very tight security. Think of say an app like what? An app like okay, say an app which allows you to have like your to-do list or something of the sort. That one, even if someone like okay like gets in or like it's like yeah, like you wouldn't want to like even if you are logged out of the application like while you're doing something, it's not a big deal because nothing much is basically like going on inside there. So uh like at times okay, say for instance you have an account and then you want because in most enterprise systems I normally have something called like SSO, whereby you log in, say, with Google to the main backend, either Google Microsoft at the main backend, and then they they give you an account and then you log in. So the token works whether your account is inactive or not. But the moment your account is disabled or deleted, it means that you can't log in into the company Gmail or the company Microsoft. And so any service that you have which wasn't registered on that particular backend, the token is still valid. And at times, some services will normally issue like long lasting tokens because mobile is considered pretty secure in terms of tokens for most backend systems, except things like banking. So at times you find that the API will give you like a backend token, and then that token is like long lasting. So in Laravel we have something called Sanctum, and on Sanctum, normally you'll end up getting. Let me just get that real quick. Uh, Laravel, uh, Sanctum. So for instance here, this is a like a pretty easy way to do API authentication on like Laravel backend systems, and the token you're given lasts almost forever. Yeah, it lasts almost forever. So this token, unless you expire it by force, uh, it will still work as long as that user is available. So like what you can do here is that as the app is being used, you can say that like once I log in, let me force that that my users should be forced to log in again, say every 3 days. That way, if the account was deactivated, then what happens is that after 3 days they can't access the application because the UI like forces them to like log out. And so I think of like when companies are like firing people and you have like company software on your device. So once you get fired or like once maybe like you're let go, the following day normally you lose access to your entire system. So all the apps you had they stop working because you've been logged out. So the different ways that happens. And so in this scenario, on the main branch, I do have the sample. So this application here, uh, very simple application. I log in, and then once I sign in, I view a list of nodes. So I can go to the next page, I can go back, next page. However, after I think it is 10 seconds, after 10 seconds, if I try to access again, I'll be logged out. Of course, like an ideal application, like you won't use like seconds. In my case, like where this is used properly, it's like 3 days. But so now the the device is responsible for storing the token expiry time so that after 3 days, as I'm fetching the token from the device, it's expired and then I'm forced to log out. So someone had asked how this is implemented. And so I'll just like run us through this first one real quick. The application is like online. It is bootstrapped using very good CLI. So like running, you have to come to like run it on the, you have to come and run it on what? You have to come and run it on the, yeah, this place here. Yeah. So now, uh, the main folder is the app folder here. And so what the app folder here, interesting. So now for tokens to be stored, normally tokens are persisted on the local device. So in this case, I use Hive, and particularly why like I like Hive is because of because you don't need like to await anything. And because if you're using like shared preferences, then you have to have an await somewhere to be able to load the content from the shared preferences. However, for like Hive, there is no awaiting, so you can get your stuff real quickly. And so now, and again, like with Hive as well, it also exposes a listener that you can listen to, so that the app is able to react to changes on the app can react to changes on the device pretty out of the box. So here I have my material app. I'm using AutoRoute for this application, and then my material app is wrapped in value listenable builder. The listenable builder, it is listening to a Hive box. So I have two boxes. So the first one is the one I just store the auth stuff on, and I have another one called the ops box. The ops box is for storing maybe like things which change quickly, because like how Hive works is that when when any content in that box changes, then the entire the value listener builder rebuilds. And so having two of them ensures that in case, say, I want to persist a list on Hive while the app is running, like say from the API, when the list is persisted, it doesn't trigger the listenable so that it's able to rebuild the widget. So that's why I have a dedicated box here called Global Hive Auth Box to ensure that uh, very rarely does the UI rebuild. And so the Hive box is listened to here. It has like a listenable. So normally this is context. Then this is the box itself, and then the widget. So at times you can do something like this. You can do box, and then you can do box.get uh, box dot. Okay, wait, something's wrong. Just one moment. I think this is the box. Yeah. Okay, that's wrong. Basically, okay, like one of these variables is the Hive box you're listening to, and you can do box.get. So here, instead of doing that, I have like my Hive service is registered. So I have like a Hive service which I have configured to be able to run all my Hive operations. So this is like clearing the box, persisting the tokens, stuff like that. And that way, the implementation for getting if the app is logged out is always in one place. And plus, since it's like real time, there is no like there isn't like like optimizing for like milliseconds in this case is pretty, in my opinion, pretty worthless. So here, uh, when the Hive box changes, like when the content there changes, I'm able to check, am I logged out? And so the way this happens is very simple. When I log in, I persist the token I receive from the API. And so persisting this token, what I do is what I do here is I persist a key called expiry time. And then in the expiry time, I set it to here, like in our case, here is like 10 seconds, but most times, like in my case, will be like 3 days for other production use cases, because we can't wait 3 days for this demo. So 10 seconds is sufficient. And so 10 seconds is the expiry time. And then now I persist the token, and then here I ensure that this logged out is marked as it's false. That way the user is able to proceed in the application without any problem. Now to run the retrieval, again, I get the box, and then I get the access token. Okay, it's okay. The box, and then I retrieve the access token. Now for the access token, I also get the expiry time, and then the expiry time is the expiry time from the box as well. So the expiry time which I have configured on the application, and then I check the expiry time, and then if the current time is more than the expiry time, then I clear the box, and after I clear the box, I tell the app to log out. No, I mark the Hive thing as logged out, and then I return. So if the access token is still valid, or if my time is still valid, I'll just get back the access token. But if not, uh, I'll get back a null, and then I mark this as logged out, so that in the UI, when that is running, it's able to pick it up, and then when I try to perform an action, then it takes me to the it takes me what it takes me to the it takes me to the what it takes me to the Flutter page. Now you will notice here one thing. Yeah, it takes me to the logged out page. And so we have the network request. Okay, yeah, as simple as that basically. So in this case, it's very, very simple and not very complex. It is the one that is a bit complex. So here we have a Hive box which are which listens to any changes, and then if the box changes, and then if the box changes, it checks the logged out value, because I don't want to like write all this all this all this what all this code in the widget. So it's in a function which is registered on a singleton, and then I log out, and then here now I come, and then I navigate to the decision page. So you'll notice here that, let's take us here. Here I have a class called singletons, which I use to register the things which should only exist once. So in this case, we have the router. The router should only ever have one instance. And so here in the router, I get the router, because the router, yeah, I get the router here. And then once I get the router, I can navigate with the router from anywhere in my application. So this is like one use case. Another use case normally is if you have notifications, because notifications normally come in when the app is in the background. At times you need to be able to navigate from wherever in the application, like for notification. So at times you can use the router for notification to navigate properly. So here we have the refresh router. Like my router is set up here. So this is like auto route. I have the decision page, the sign-in page, the landing, then the debrief notes. So when the app opens, it opens to the decision page. So here is now where I check the token, and then if it's not existing, I sign in. If it exists, then I check that the user profile is on the device. If it's not, I sign in. Otherwise, I go to the landing page. So once I log in, I'm able to have the app refresh to take me to the correct place. So even when the app closes and it reopens, as the app is reopening, this page always runs, so that I'm able to be taken to the correct place depending on my authentication status. So I sign in. I've signed in. I have a list here. I have a fab here, which takes me to the same page. So this is the same page, calling the same API. No huge difference. And then after 10 seconds, I am logged out as I try to perform an action. So that there is one example of how this token thing works. We'll have time for Q&A, like once I finish the second one. And so now the second one is now whereby uh there are some APIs which say are pretty robust. So what they will normally do is that they will give you two tokens. One, they give you an access token, and then they give you a refresh token. The access token is what you use to call the actual APIs. Oh yeah. So in this case, now let me just give some context. So in this case, on my API here, I have one. So this is the endpoint I'm calling here. I'm calling an endpoint called debrief notes. So this endpoint requires a token to be able to work. So some APIs, when you sign in, they'll give you, let me just go to the auth module here. So when I sign in, so like when I sign in some APIs, I'll receive the access token and I'll also receive the refresh token. The refresh token, the access token is what I use now to call this API. But once the backend knows that the token has expired, or like once the token expires, then I am normally meant to use the refresh token I receive. I call another endpoint, receive a new token without having to log in again. So the flow is pretty much like this. Call login endpoint. Once you call the login endpoint, you receive access token to call the APIs, and you receive the refresh token. So here you call the endpoint. So this now will be like the username and password. And then you retrieve the access token. And then you call your APIs normally. You call them normally. So at some point, the token expires. Now, for some APIs, this is like 5 minutes. This is like, say, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 15 minutes. I once worked for some people, and like, and that token expired after every request. So like you will do like one request, the token is expired, you refresh, and then make the next request, then make the next request. It was like a financial system that they were working on. So again, very, very robust. So the token expires. So now at this point, you use your refresh token to call an endpoint that will give you a new access token. So the refresh token has like a longer lifespan than the access token, which can be like 5-10 minutes. Because for instance, if you go to some pages on the web, you can see the request being made, and then you are able to see the token is in use. So if I'm an attacker, I can just go and get the token in a request on a web page. I think you can even try this. What? Let me see. Let's try GitHub. I don't think GitHub does this. So if you go to the network tab, and then let's say I do this. No, but GitHub doesn't have this. GitHub uses something else to do the render. Okay, good. Here we go. So if I go on GitHub, I can just get the request, and then I go to the request headers, and then I check the authentication. I check authentication, and then most times the auth token will be somewhere inside here that I can just copy, and then I make the request. So for instance, I can just do this. Say I copy a skull, and then I go to my HTTP. I go to my HTTP thing. And then say I make a new request. New request. So if I copy that in, I can do that, and then I should be able to make the same request uh, to that API that GitHub made. So there we go. So now people do this for APIs. They can just go and get this request. So the refresh token, the access token normally lasts like 2 minutes, because 2 5 minutes, so that it doesn't take too long, and that the attacker whose token they're using, it can be it can what it can be revoked quickly, and they won't be able to cause much damage. Hence, this person, they were using a new token for every request on that API. That way, if a token is misused, you can know exactly what was used, and you can minimize the damage that that token can cause. And that is why, like Sanctum, like on Laravel, provides like long living tokens, because it's harder to crack mobile applications than it is for web apps. So these things are normally like best for web apps, but for mobile you can have like longer lasting tokens, because if you know how to store them like securely on the device, and some phones have like pretty strong mechanisms to prevent access, so you can use your token forever if you want. Okay, unless now you're doing okay like a sniffing thing like on the request. But bottom, that is that. And then get the new token, and then use the new token to make the request. And so in this application, what has happened is that I have my network file here. Let me just follow these steps, because it was quite hectic to get these things right. So here in the Hive service, I have disabled this expiry check. So no more expiry time. The token will always be returned the way it is. So it is disabled. And then number two, on the network file, uh, sorry, in the network file. Okay, so for context, this network file is like a utility file which has all the methods that are normally used for requests. That way you don't have to keep on doing uh, do.get every single time. So, okay, for instance, we have a get request here. I pass in the URL, and then I pass in the query parameters where needed, because there's a normally key when it comes to things like filtering and loading extra data for some APIs. And then I have my HTTP client here. So HTTP client is DO that I'm using. So I get, and then I pass in the response, and then I decode, and then I manage all the errors, all that good stuff. And then if all is good, I just in my service file now, in my service file, I just get the JSON data, and then I pass it back into the UI. So this data is good enough for decoding very, very quickly. So like in our case here, the API will give me back uh, debrief notes. It will give me back an object that has an entity, the ULID, the node, and then maybe this if I want it. Now for context, the ULID here, this API does not give back integer IDs, because integer IDs normally enable enumeration attacks. So ULIDs are like more random. So in the DB itself, use like a ULID to use like a ULID for APIs, and then the ID itself, the integer itself, is used for internal purposes and for querying purposes. So secret things as well. So that is returned and decoded properly. So that is that. So same thing. Post request here, the URL, and then like the body as well. So the body comes as a JSON encoded string ready for sending. Now I have a method here called get HTTP client. So here's where I set up DO, and then I've set up the base URL. So the base URL is configured in these constant variables. Uh, and then I now set up what are called interceptors. So this is what I was speaking about like last time, interceptors. So here, before the request is made, I always go to my Hive box, and then I retrieve the token. Now, in our case here, to be able to test the expiry of the token. I'll now enable this function on the wrapper, so that when there's an error, like when an error happens as I'm making the request, if the error is a 4.1, so my API returns 4.1 for it returns 4.1 for invalid tokens, then I'll log an auth error occurred, and then I can check the response, and then here is now where I get the refresh token. So I refresh the token, and then I inject it back into the request, and then the request can continue. And so now the key thing here is my method refresh token here. So basically, this is basically hard coded because my API doesn't, because I didn't have the time to make an API which gives you the refresh token and the access token. Because of time, pretty interesting how preparing these demos works. So these are basically hard coded. However, if I comment out all of this, so basically I have the base URL for the API, and then I use a new DO instance so that I don't end up in a loop, because the error will keep on happening as long as the token has expired. So I base URL, all that stuff, timeouts, all the good stuff. And then now here, I go into my Hive, and then I retrieve the refresh token. So remember, we have access token, refresh token. So I retrieve my refresh token. Now retrieving my refresh token, I'll get that. If it's null, then it's bad. The app will go haywire, but most likely it should be there. And so after getting the refresh token, I'll now do a post request, because most times it's a post request. I do a post request to the endpoint that the API gives to refresh the token. So I'll pass in the refresh token. So this is now whereby I don't have to like keep on like logging back out to sign in with my email and password. I just pass in the refresh token, and then I decode the response, all that good stuff. And then once I get the response, so the response will have the new token, and then the new token, I can persist the new token onto the device, and then if need be, I can persist, if the API is giving like a new refresh token, I can persist the new refresh token onto my device, like the API spoke about here, where the access token, refresh token are different for every request. So you make the first request, it expires, use the refresh token to make the next request, you get a new access token and a new refresh token, and the cycle continues for every single request. So yeah, good stuff. So this token here is one that I already have on my DB already. Again, Sanctum, the tokens are like long lasting. So what I've done here is, in my debrief service, I just came and cleared the preferences. So here, clearing here, I just clear the access token, and then the value will be null, so that when I am getting to this point here, on my request, I'll get an error, and then I should see an auth error occurred, and then which then triggers the refresh, because the token is missing and because the API gives back a 4.1. And then I do all of that, and then I persist my original token that I got already, because remember, I have the logo enabled. So in the logo, so like with I have the logo enabled, I can see everything going on. So I just like pick out select the token here, and then it's how I had coded the token here. So I'll comment this back out again, because we don't have an actual API for this, but the concept should be pretty straightforward now that you've seen it. So now I'll just come on here, and then I do a refresh, and then we log in, and then we see the thing in action. So here I'll log in. Oh my, oh, sorry, something's wrong.
The presentation.
Network. Oh no, oh no, it's good. You can see my, like, if you can see my screen properly, yeah, the phone here.
Yeah, we can.
Okay, so now here what I have done here is that, say if I now make this request, I will now just scroll up on my logs, and then here I'll see that this person, so we tried to make a request to our endpoint debrief notes. On making that request, we had an authentication error, so which is here, an auth error occurred, and then the response from there was that message, you have been authenticated. So what then that happened is that I now went and now called the persist no I now went and began now to I now went and called the refresh token method, and then all those things we assumed happen, but then like in the end I get a new token, and get a new token, I persist the new token. So okay, so here now you can see that persist refresh token was called, and then persisting new refresh token. So here's the log, persisting user. So this is the new token that was persisted, and then once it's persisted, then the token is available as well. The token is available, so it's persisted to like Hive now for subsequent requests, and then it is given back to the calling function, here, and then it is injected back into the request. Then the request can be resolved, and then so now here now it now repeats so this now repeats the request with the updated header, and then it now continues onto the next one, and so on and so forth. So this as well is key, say if you have like an app, which say like an e-commerce app that you're running, and say like you have to like update sales, all that stuff, you wouldn't want to be forced to log out every 5 minutes to be able to get a new token. So the refresh token and this method handles that. The last method, which we will not discuss because I have to have like a hard stop at like 9 p.m., is the auto logout. So you normally see in banks, whereby like in banks you normally see that the app, like as you log in, if you leave the app open for like 5 minutes, you get like a prompt, hey, we'll sign you out in like 30 seconds to continue. Press anything, or like close this or continue. Like if you don't, then they log you out. So the way that happens, of course, I'll give a hint, but maybe I can yeah, because it was too tedious to prepare the sample on time. uh Local timeout session, just a moment. Yeah, so you can check this package out. Very, very nice, though the actual implementation is pretty complex, which which was quite tedious to get into, and I can't show you the actual app because if I do, you guys will have to contribute legal fees. But basically, you are able to have, say, a package like this that is able to assist you have like a stream of when the time is ticking. So basically, it's like a ticker to help you. And so when the ticker is running, say for like 5 minutes, what then like what's then meant to happen is that what's meant to happen is that after like 5 minutes, you're supposed to, okay, so let me just like lay this down. So process, have a ticker to manage the time. Sorry, the time. When the time expires, uh now normally here in the app, let me just share this with us. In the material app, or the Cupertino app, or like whatever app you're using, in case like using something like Shard CN, you will normally wrap this material app with an overlay. So just a moment, wrap with an overlay. An overlay allows you to show widgets without, how do I put this? It allows you to show widgets without from any place. So basically, exactly, it's like a portal. It's like a portal opens. So there's a widget called overlay portal. Very good. Overlay portal, Flutter. So overlay portal will allow you to show anything anywhere on whatever screen. So you will wrap the app with overlay, like overlay portal, and then have a ticker. When the time expires, use the overlay portal. Use the overlay portal to show the what? To show the prompt. And then after this, Flutter has a way to restart the app. So in our case, all authentication is checked by the decision, but this requires the app to restart. So it's so you can use Flutter to force an app restart so that it can be checked, and then like once it's checked, once it fails the check, then once it fails the check, then what happens is that then you have to log in again. Manually, and that is that. So I won't speak much past this point to allow for the Q&A before I have to drop off. The code is available online.
Yeah, thanks so much, Mila. It's been a really technical deep dive. So today's content was more intermediate advanced. Yeah, so if anyone has a question, oh yeah, there's also someone asking for the notes that you've written.
Okay, let me just do that. So I'll put this as an MD in the file. Let me just put this as a. All right. Okay. So I'll put this as notes down here. So I guess this should work fairly well. Let me see. Okay. Add notes. Okay. Done. So they should be on the README. Oh wait, there's something shouldn't be there. Okay. Awesome. Anything else?
I think we'll now let you go to your next engagement. Thank you so much for leading us through this.
Awesome. I should be available on the group as well for any discussions in case anyone wants to go technical. Hive over ISA. Hive, I prefer Hive for things like for smaller things. Okay, for instance, token management, stuff like that. But then ISA, I then prefer it for apps where you're dealing with like huge amounts of data, where you need searching, where you need indexing, where you need like relationships and stuff like that. So ISA works very, very well there. But for things like you have maybe like a token here, maybe like a boolean here, like a boolean there, Hive works very, very well and it's not overkill. But then ISA is now really great for table data. Say for instance, like you're doing an app which is like fully offline and you must save all the relations properly. So ISA will work very, very well. Yeah. And the searching is really great as well. Awesome.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
I'm not
2
sure whether the
seconds.
floor is still open.
Go ahead. You can
Yeah.
a few seconds.
Okay, sorry. So a quick one. So first, thank you for the presentation. And I noted that in your presentation, it mentions disabling Hive for logged out users. So how would you handle scenarios where encrypted offline data still needs to be accessible after the token expirations? For example, in healthcare apps, there's a certain compliance. I'm not sure whether you know about it, the HIPAA compliance, which always allows for offline access to critical data. So how do you ensure that this data is still accessible in the sense that there are other encrypted offline data?
Okay, that's a different case. Okay, so for like HIPAA compliance, I'm aware of like HIPAA compliance. So what happens here is that there are two things. One, here the scope for today was being able to log in and out. Yeah, and like ideally to ensure that the user doesn't use the application if the token has expired. So in our case, like the user data, that data remains intact in the box as it is, but the moment your token expires, you have to be logged out to log back in. But the database is like its own DB, which allows it to be accessible. And I guess if you must access data critically, then I guess now what you can then do is that I think the first option becomes the best option in that you allow for the token, like you have the token expire. No, like you expire, like you have like a long lasting token, then have it expire after a couple of days, maybe like once you get back online, then you expire it at that point. So basically, it's merely a matter of what? It's merely a matter of knowing how to approach a thing, and then like being able to play with the variables, to push them in or to push them out to allow for a sweet spot. Yeah. So I do have to drop off now. I'll catch us on the WhatsApp group. For those who are there, the code is there. Feel free to roast. And again, as I always say, every line of code is well thought out, and has like reasoning behind it. So in case it looks different from what you will have, most likely I have an explanation because I've been doing this for like 6 years now. So there's a way I do things that is the same across the board. At times needs changing, but until it stops working well, then if it works, it works. And I can explain, and everything has like an engineering reason behind it. So I should be open to explaining anything that is the problem, should there be a need. So good stuff. Thank you, Mike.
Yeah, thanks so much, Mila. And thank you everyone for attending. The recording will be available a little bit later, so it will be shared. Yeah, and in case of any other questions, you can just ask within the WhatsApp group. And other than Mila, any of the other experts, even those who are here, would also be able to answer. Sounds good. So everyone have a great night.